You know when you have a deadline looming along the horizon and the impending doom of not measuring up to your own perceived image of yourself in your mind becomes too embarrassing to face, and you pressure yourself into meeting this one goal by a certain time, and no one is telling you you have to do it. No one is threatening you with irrelevance or destruction if you don't achieve this goal you've set against yourself. Can you tell I had fun in university? This is what I do to myself. This is how I finished NaNoWriMo. It's how I finished almost every project I've ever set my mind to, and I do not recommend it. My reading goal for the year at the beginning of 2022 was 50 books. That's it. The year before, I think I only read a little under 40 books, but when I surpassed that goal in July/August, I thought, you know what? I see you, and I raise you. Let's go for 100. That'll look better as a title at the end of the year. And then I was like, you know what else? I'm gonna write a book as well. So when I counted up the total books I read at the beginning of December to see how many more I would need to reach my goal, I saw I was actually behind schedule by 10 measly titles. And so, here are the last 10 books I read in 2022 that allowed me to surpass 100 books for the year. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Neverland Book Club. The list of books up for discussion today are of a wide variety of both genre and length. There's even one classic thrown in to bring me back to my reading roots. Let's start first with Counterfeit by Kristen Chen, a contemporary mystery thriller with social and cultural commentary about a young, educated Chinese-American woman and mother who seemed to have taken all the right steps in life to secure her future. That is, until she is visited by her old college friend who drags her into an elaborate yet simple scheme of counterfeit luxury handbags. The story is told through the main character's perspective as she is telling her side of the story to authorities after apparently being caught for this counterfeit ring. She travels to and from China and witnesses the circumstances under which these luxury handbags are being made and manufactured. She recounts her time in college with her roommate when both of their characters come into light, and by the end of the novel, you've turned on your head and you don't know who or what to believe exactly. This was a fun and interesting read that was eye-opening and really makes you think about the price of mass consumerism. I also had a what? Aha moment when the book explained the price behind name brand bags. Take Louis Vuitton, for example, and I'm not saying this is true, I simply read it in a book of fiction, but, you know, allegedly. What makes a brand like this worth the price is not only the name, the craftsmanship, the design, but the fact that it was made in Italy. Or, you know, wherever the brand is supposed to be from. Louis Vuitton, Italy, we'll say. Well, according to the book, some brands only ship off the handle of the bag upon which that label is printed to Italy, while the rest of the bag is actually made in China. That's how they got away with that label. And that blew my mind. Maybe I'm just naive and thinking otherwise, but I don't know if that's true. Is that true?
At least with cars, there has to be a certain percentage of the product that has to be assembled.
Really?
Yeah, for you to claim that the car was made from a certain country. But parts get sent from other places, and those parts do say made in whatever part they're made from.
It's all a scam!
So what I'm saying is, you could have a handle that says made in Italy, but if most of the bag was made somewhere else, there might be another tag that says made in China, referring to the whole product.
I sneeze at that. It's all a scam. Everything. Life. It's a scam. Chen also did a fair job in balancing the social aspect of the story with women at the forefront, both in business and at home. The characters were well-rounded and the storyline was a fun and interesting ride. I recommend this to those looking for something quick and engaging to spend a day reading, but not if you have a hard time swallowing hard pills of reality. Next we have The Bodyguard by Catherine Center, a done and done again plot with a simple gender swap twist that I had a higher expectation for at the beginning, but was soon let down with the blandness of it. This was like seeing a lovely meal come out of the oven and then taking the first bite and tasting nothing and wondering if you have COVID. Again, you know that happens to me every time I I eat something and I can't really taste it. I think, oh shit, it's back. Contemporary romances are normally pretty blah as is. That's why we read them. But this one was blah. The traditional story of the bodyguard is something similar to the tale as old as time. Strong man protect woman. Can't get more primitive than that. But here, Center decided, you know what? What if the woman did the protecting? And I am all for that. I was fairly on board in the beginning as we got to meet our main character and explore the intricacies of being head of a security detail for a high-end celebrity. The book discusses the protocol behind such a job and what a relationship like that would look like. I found this part of the book quite interesting and was fully engaged. That was until we got to the romance aspect of it, which, I know, me of all people. But hey, sometimes it's a hit or a miss. I think my problem was that it adopted the fake relationship trope to drive the plot forward, to remain inconspicuous, and I don't think this is a spoiler, it's just the main trope of the story. The bodyguard pretends to be the subject's girlfriend in order to do her job properly and as unobtrusively as possible, which, sure, I can see how that would work, but then the press comes in with their speculation and mockery, and a stalker joins the stage, and all this stuff happens that's just so low stakes. It's all just it's just a little disappointing. I recommend the beginning of this book, but not so much the ending. Just read the first 1/3 and then put it down. You're not missing much. Okay, next we have The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. I think. This dark academia mystery thriller revolves around a secret society known as the Maidens. It's set in Cambridge and follows a string of murders with one man as our main character's suspect number 1. I know, I said suspect. It wouldn't come out. We follow her journey to uncover the truth as her niece is one of the victims. As a dark academia enthusiast myself, I did enjoy the plot, the vibes, the overall idea of this novel. However, I found it a bit annoying at times. The main character just seems to run around in circles with the sole purpose of uncovering her one suspect as guilty to these murders and ends up discrediting herself and ruining her own reputation in the process. She doesn't seem to think things through all the way and is rather impulsive, which I found a bit irritating. I do recommend this book to those who enjoyed the old murder mystery, but I did not enjoy it as much as I thought I would from the start. Next, we have another disappointing contemporary romance, The Ex Hex by Erin Sterling. A young witch is scorned, and what is she to do but hex the one who broke her heart? But then, 9 years later, the one that got away comes back, desperate to lift the curse. The best part of this book was the ex's name, Reese. But there's only one Reese. And this is not it. He has wings. Yeah. Upon his return to the town, things start to go bibbidi-bobbidi-boo, and the stakes are so low sometimes while reading I wondered why I wasn't putting the book down and picking something else up instead. There's a forced proximity trope that requires the two main characters to work together to break the curse and save the town, but I just didn't buy it. It was fun. I enjoyed the talking cat, for sure, who yells treats, but I don't know, it wasn't my cup of witch's brew tea. Now for the classic of the month, The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Now, I know, how have I not read this yet? This itch, that pretentious literary itch I sometimes have for classics, and I enjoyed it immensely. Someone commented, why is this so pretentious? Or...
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was. It still eats at me because I am pretentious.
So why is it eating you?
And that's fine. After reading so much smut and contemporary romances and just overall waste of time titles this year, it was nice to return to a classroom, so to speak, and analyze the intricacies of a well-told, original story that explores the nature of human pursuits for vain immortality. I've known what this story is about for years, as most people do, I assume. It's one of those titles you hear time and time again, but somehow just never get around to actually reading it. I knew from the start that this was a dark, gothic horror novel that I was going to devour and deconstruct, and that's exactly what I did. If you don't know what the story is about, good. Go in blind. I wish I could have read this book not knowing a thing about it, so I won't tell you here. Just go read it. It's lovely. Okay, so I went from a novel written so beautifully I was taking notes to a novel written so juvenilely I was also taking notes as what to avoid when writing dialogue in particular. The Iron Widow by Jiren J. Zhao. Harsh words, I know, but that is not to say that the story is not excellent. My one and only gripe with this novel was the dialogue. Everything else I felt was executed well for the young adult fantasy genre. This was actually a buddy read with Hecate, and I was with her when she purchased it. She started reading and told me I needed to pick it up immediately, and so I downloaded the Kindle version impatiently and swallowed it whole. The story is original, intimidating, exhilarating, gut-wrenching, human, and so inspiring all at the same time. I don't know very much about the ancient Chinese practice of foot binding, but was quite horrified to find the reality of the practice and to read it being done to the main character through her perspective was quite a shock. I believe there is a trigger warning at the beginning of the book, and definitely read that first before diving in, because there are other elements of horror, both real and imagined, in this story, and I applaud Zhao at what she has accomplished with this novel. At times I felt like it was mixing themes of the Hunger Games with certain mecha anime and manga I've seen in the past, and I enjoyed it. I look forward to the sequel and anything else Zhao writes in the future, and am interested in seeing how her writing style might mature. For the last title of fiction of 2022, I wanted to close it out reading the Barnes & Noble winner of Book of the Year, Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. This book was also a Goodreads nominee for Best Historical Fiction and winner of the Best Debut Novel in 2022. Quite impressive indeed, but not quite as impressive as the story itself. I'm actually a bit upset I didn't read this book before compiling my top 10 list of the year, because I would definitely have included it. So here's an honorable mention. Being a woman in science myself and seeing other fellow women scientists work around me who have to choose between their time in the lab and time with their families, their children specifically. It's a silent burden we bear and a decision we have to make. However, this story is even more infuriating due to its time frame. Not only is the story about a woman in science, but it is set in the 1960s, when it was hard enough as a woman in the workforce, let alone such a male-dominated space as chemistry. Honestly, this novel triggered me more than any of the others I've read because I just took it so personally. The main character, Elizabeth Zott, fights battle after battle, never losing herself or her resolve, never losing her love for chemistry or learning, never letting anyone define her as anything other than a scientist, no matter what they did or said or threw in her face. And I am so very proud of this fictitious woman, because she's not fictitious at all. She is the legacy that came before every woman that steps foot in a lab. She walked so women like me could run, and I believe everyone watching should get their hands on a copy of this novel and read between the lines and try to understand beyond the chemistry of the story. Because it's also a romance, a mother-daughter story, a story of grief, of the love of dogs, of the indomitable spirit of woman. Just read it, okay? It's really good. That concludes the fiction round. Now for the nonfiction. Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner, and Goodreads winner for Best Memoir and Autobiography of 2021. I've picked this title up and put it down a few times while browsing bookstores over the years, and, well, like 2 years. And for some reason, it just never spoke to me until now. I wanted a nonfiction that would read like fiction, since that's just my preference, and it was finally available on Libby, so I downloaded it and listened to it just straight through. And I'm glad I did. This was almost therapeutic in Zauner's way of describing her relationship with her mother, as well as her Korean-American heritage. I feel like as first-generation children of parents who have immigrated from other countries, we all have things in common we don't always see right away, no matter what country you might be from, which is something I find so interesting in the consistency of the experience. The guilt, specifically, individuals sometimes feel when realizing their parents came here for you, essentially. The whole, I had to walk to school with one shoe, my brother and I shared the pair, 20 miles there, 30 miles back. We all have one of those stories. I could say it in my dad's accent, but I don't want to be rude. And this memoir is a much more rich and deep interpretation of that foreigner's story. I hope I'm not offending anyone, but I am too a child of immigrants, so I feel quite qualified to say I felt somewhat of a kinship with Zauner's childhood experience. I remember telling my mom about this book, specifically when Zauner recalls getting hurt as a child and describing her mother's reaction as though she broke something of hers rather than comforting her in a time of pain. And of course, my mother laughed, because it's funny. Because you have to laugh, otherwise it's just mean. All of this is to say I recommend this book to those who both are and are not children of immigrants. One, to know that you're not alone, and to read through one woman's accounts of grief, homesickness, and general feelings of being lost, as well as learning about an experience you may not know the first thing about, and expanding the horizons of your humanity to those some shun without knowing their true story. It did read like fiction, and I believe the audiobook is narrated by Zauner herself, so yes, go read. Okay, and finally, for the last two titles I read to tip me over the edge of 100 this year, Milk and Honey and The Sun and Her Flowers by Rupi Kaur. If you're on Tumblr, you know who Rupi Kaur is. Her poems are everywhere, printed on totes, shirts, teacups. I've known of her for a fairly long time and have come across a number of her poems, as we all possibly have, but never read through her poetry books from cover to cover. And so one day I did just that with both of these collections. I enjoyed them both for what they were and loved the break and ease I felt in reading something entirely different than the normal narrative I'm used to. There's a different elegance required in telling a cohesive story through a collection of poems, and I believe Kaur did an excellent job with both of these titles doing just that. These can be triggering for some, so read with caution. But I also found the illustrations lovely in their minimalistic depth. Both of these are wonderful if you're looking for a quick read without feeling too enveloped in a heavy narrative and enjoying a bit of melancholic poetry. That's not to say the storytelling is not also heavy, so just read the trigger warnings, I guess. Okay, so there it is, 2022 in books. It's been a lovely second year with you all here on this channel, and I have no intention of stopping despite my awkward uploading schedule. I know this video is way overdue, but hey, I'd be lying if I told you it's not eating me up inside. Because it is. But this is the one thing I'm letting myself be lenient with. I don't want the channel to feel like a chore, and so I want to thank you all so much for watching for another year and supporting this curly-haired clown woman, even though my hair is straight today. I don't necessarily mention every single book I read because then I might bore you with oversharing every single thought I have or wasting your time telling you about books I didn't like, so just know the ones I do talk about, I feel a need to share with you, all dear viewers, and I hope you take away the sense of reading camaraderie I'm hoping to provide. Also, the next video I'm making and putting out is all the books I did hate, so I am gonna talk about those.
It's not all of them, it's not.
It's the top 10 that I hated most. Stay tuned, subscribe. Yes, the worst 10 of the year.
Yes.
With that said, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you're all reading and writing videos we have what? For all reading and writing videos we have planned for the future. Also, be sure to click that bell to be notified when we post, go live, and the like. Also, be sure to join us on Heartbeat, follow on all the things linked below, and comment some of your favorite reads of the past year. Today's shout out goes to Rip K. Thank you so much for these words of encouragement. I am grateful for viewers like you who keep my motivation going. I think 2023 is going to be a good year in reading as well as in writing, so. Alright, I'm off to go get a jump start on my reading goal for 2023. 100? 150? 200? We shall see, I am ambitious. Stay lost, keep reading.